Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our next matchup for UFC 323. In this matchup, we have a clash of eras, if you will, as Henry Cejudo, the former two-division UFC champion and Olympic gold medalist, takes on Payton Talbott, the rising prospect and probably the still prospect of the bantamweight division, who still has some hype around him for sure. A rising technician who represents the evolution of bantamweight contenders. So you have Cejudo, a fighter who's kind of known for reinventing himself with every stage of his career, versus Talbot, who brings youth, composure, and a fluid striking style that's captured the attentions of many fans, such as myself and analysts as well. I guess you could say this fight isn't really just about power or wrestling or speed. It's about how styles converge, experience versus momentum, and it's about whether a legend can pose the old fundamentals one more time, or whether the new wave of timing and precision overwhelms that foundation. And today I'll be breaking down their matchup. My apologies for that. First, I'll cover Henry Cejudo, what makes his game so difficult, and how he applies pressure in ways that doesn't look dramatic on the surface, but very dramatic impacts over rounds. Then, Talbot, his striking nuances, his composure, and the subtle details that make him effective by far beyond his experience level. And after that, how their styles converge and who I think is going to win. But real quick, just kind of looking at it, looking at their last 5 fights, if you will, Payton Talbot was undefeated and, like I said, came in with a bunch of hype, finishing Nick Argueta, Cameron Smotherman, and Giannis Gamori. Then he lost his first fight to Hani Barcelos at UFC 311, but rebounded very well against a fellow prospect in Felipe Lima. A fight that I do think brought some of the momentum back for Payton Talbot. For Henry Cejudo, it's not looked good for him as of recent. His last win was almost 6 years ago, about 5.5 years, when he defeated Dominic Cruz back in 2020 to defend the bantamweight title. Then he returned 3 years later, lost a close fight to Aljamain Sterling for the belt in May of 2023, UFC 288. Lost to Merab Dvalishvili, but it's Merab, everyone loses to him, at UFC 289. And then most recently, this February, lost to Song Yadong in a fight where he was competitive, but I thought Song was winning up until the eye poke, which unfortunately made it a technical decision. So, not look great for Henry Cejudo, and it has been confirmed that this is his retirement fight. So that definitely brings another layer for me in terms of the analysis. Without further ado, let's break down their styles. So starting with Henry Cejudo, he's one of the most decorated competitors to ever step in the cage. But the truth is not just the accolades that made him interesting. It's the way he had upgraded and redesigned his game through the different eras of his career. Early on, he relied heavily on his wrestling pedigree. I mean, he was, if I'm not mistaken, the youngest American to ever win gold in the Olympics in wrestling. But later, after losing to Demetrius Johnson, he evolved into a stand-switching, pressure-oriented fighter who could weaponize his footwork as effectively as he weaponized his takedowns. You saw that after he lost to, like I said, Demetrius Johnson, who blew him out of the water in their first fight, and then a close fight to Joseph Benavidez. Cejudo came back much improved, used a more karate-based striking style, and destroyed Wilson Hayes, beat Sergio Pettis, and then went on to beat TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, and Cruz. What defines Cejudo is control. He doesn't just move forward, he forces opponents to fight from uncomfortable positions. His footwork is very calculated, full of those micro adjustments that lets him take away the pocket range so that so many strikers need. And when he steps inside, he's not reckless. He's very good at feints, shoulder rolls, and those slight level changes. You saw that. I think the Wilson Hayes fight is the best example of Cejudo's improved striking. How he just started using that karate stance, very good at dipping levels and threatening with takedown to land his straight right. And even later on in his career, even at 38, he still has good strike. I mean, he rocked Merab in the first round of their fight, and he had some good moments in the striking against Aljo and Song. Now, Cejudo's wrestling isn't simply a threat; it's kind of the anchor point to his whole game. It changes how opponents behave even when he's not shooting. Opponents widen their stances. They are hesitant to throw low kicks, and they commit to punches differently because, the constant threat of the takedown. That's why most wrestlers dominate MMA. And when Cejudo does shoot, he chains his attempts. One entry turns into, his chain wrestling. Like how he caught DJ when he went for double underhooks in the clinch and then reaped the leg kind of for a simple trip, but he got TJ down nonetheless. His clinch game is, like I said, another part of his approach. He uses inside ties, short elbows, and positional awareness to keep opponents from resetting comfortably. And he thrives in these transitions where the pace is high, but the movements are small. And while he doesn't always dominate with top control the way pure wrestlers do, he uses takedowns strategically to score, steal moments, to steal rounds, or simply force the fight he wants. And like I said, even later, Cejudo still has great fight IQ. He's so good at making mid-fight adjustments. It's just I think the game has simply caught up to him. Um, and the big question for this fight is whether the speed and sharpness of his entries can keep up with this new crop of athletes. Because while Sterling more or less was a new breed, at least at the time, so Sterling was still sort of part of Cejudo's era. Same with Marab in some sense. Song was more of the new generation, but he's literally now fighting the truest of the new generation in Talbot. Plus, like I said, even though he still has shown to be competitive at 38, Cejudo is still 38 at bantamweight. Not to mention, he's kind of been more striking oriented than wrestling oriented. I mean, he didn't shoot that many takedowns against Song. He out wrestled Marab for a round, but then just started to try to strike him. I understand his arm was broken, but still. And the Sterling fight was the most he showed his wrestling since his return. But even then, Sterling was able to out wrestle him for good portions, partly because of how big Sterling is, but showing how effective MMA wrestling is in comparison to pure wrestling. Now, look at that Payton Talbott. He's going to bring a completely different style to this fight. He fights long, relaxed, and very fluid, with a sense of timing that goes beyond his experience level. But where Cejudo is kind of structured and systematic, Talbot is much more adaptive and effortless. He uses range like a paintbrush, if you will, creating opportunities with his jabs, his feints, and his command distance. Talbot seems to just be a natural born fighter. He's got a really good chin too. And you see how he smiles in there after getting it. It's very clear he enjoys the fight and he's very composed. He never seems to be uncomfortable no matter what happens. Even in the loss to Barcelos, he was never discouraged. He never rushed. He never looked like he was second guessing. He just fights. It's plain and simple. He just fights, but he's got such good composure, good athleticism too. When he showed better takedown defense as the fight went on against Nick Argueta. And even as that fight went late, he was starting to look better as the fight went on with Barcelos. And like I said, you saw in the Felipe Lima fight how much better Talbot was. How much better Talbot got in his takedown defense. And his jab is very educated, and it's his primary tool for range, managing range. He doesn't just throw to score; he throws it to gather information, draw reactions, and set up the right hand, which is devastating. I mean, he has a frame that's roughly Sean O'Malley. He's size, but he's clearly bigger. And he's got legit knockout power. Now, same as O'Malley, but I think Talbot might hit harder than O'Malley. It's hard to say, but that left hook over against Cameron Smotherman, that was just vicious. I mean, he literally knocked out Giannis Gamori with the second punch he threw. Talbot's striking is also kind of built around timing more than brute force. As I've said, he waits for those overextension for small mistakes and then counters with precision. His right hand is a weapon of mass destruction. I don't know if it's Wellmaker's level of mass destruction, but it's pretty damn effective. And unlike many young fighters, Talbot doesn't get greedy. If he lands clean, he will reset and not just rush. Now, if he knows he has you absolutely hurt, he will go for the kill. Especially, like I said, that short left hook he landed on Smotherman. Or shoot, you heard the knee, you heard the knee he timed over Smotherman's takedown. I mean, sounded like a bat hit him. Another area where Talbot stands out is in those transitional moments, the space between striking and grappling. When fighters try to time up, he creates frames quickly and punishes exits with elbows or hooks. He's hard to hold against the cage, and he's difficult to predict because he uses minimal waist movement. And his defense is pretty good. He's got good head movement and good footwork as well. Again, he is there to be hit sometimes, and can rely on his chin a bit too much, but he's still got a hell of a chin. Now, he hasn't faced anyone in the level of Cejudo in terms of wrestling. And what does he have? But what he does have is balance, composure, and ability to make fighters pay when they are reckless. Plus, his youth is going to give him a natural speed advantage, an advantage that becomes more pronounced if he can maintain the fight as his preferred distance. Now, this matchup essentially just has a fundamental question. Can Talbot maintain space long enough to neutralize Cejudo's entries, or can Cejudo collapse into the pocket and turn this into the type of fight where his championship experience takes over? Distance is basically the name of the game. Talbot can win long exchanges, Talbot wants the long exchanges, Cejudo wants the short ones. Talbot wants time to see the entries, Cejudo wants to disguise his takedowns with layered pressure. Talbot wants clean angles and reset points. Cejudo wants to eliminate resets entirely and force Talbot to work in a grueling, dirty range, in the phone booth. The opening minutes will be a battle of reads, as Cejudo will test Talbot's reactions with feints and level changes, while Talbot will test Cejudo's timing with his jabs and interceptors like knees and or uppercuts, for example, or even teeps to the body. The fighter who wins these early exchanges will dictate the rhythm for the entire matchup. So if Cejudo can get it inside consistently, he forces Talbot to defend takedowns, defend clinch pressure, and fight at a pace that drains composure over time. That's where Cejudo thrives, by turning clean fights into messy ones, in this case. But if Talbot can use his length to keep Cejudo at the end of his punches, he creates a very different dynamic, because Cejudo becomes forced to cover more distance on every entry. His feints become less effective, and his wrestling becomes much more predictable. And the more predictable Cejudo becomes, the more Talbot's timing will take over. Plus, like I said, speed is also going to be a major factor. Talbot is the much faster man. He's sharper, and his reactions are fresher. As good as Cejudo is, age affects those. And in a fight like this, where seconds can determine the outcome, that's a really big thing to have. So, again, this fight really just comes down to whether Cejudo can consistently close space while taking clean counters. Because if Talbot can make him pay early, Cejudo's pressure becomes harder to sustain. I do see both. I know both fighters have a clear path to victory, and Cejudo's accomplishment make it impossible for count out, especially him as a 2-1 dog. Especially because of his experience wrestling and strategic understandings give him an advantage many fighters simply can't overcome. But in this matchup, at this point in time, I'm going to go with Payton Talbot, simply because he has the speed, the space, and the timing. I think Talbot's patience and accuracy will create too many obstacles for Cejudo to navigate clearly across multiple rounds. And Talbot's ability to intercept entries, control range with the jab, and punish Cejudo's forward pressure will gradually chip away at the foundation of Henry's style. The longer the fight stays standing, the more Talbot's timing takes over. And as the rounds accumulate, the speed differential becomes a bigger factor. So while I think Cejudo will have moments, and his wrestling pedigree could be an avenue to victory, I just simply believe that Talbot's range, youth, and timing are going to edge him out in this one. I'm going to go with Payton Talbot, and I think he can knock out Henry Cejudo. He's got the power to do it. Henry is 38 years old. I know he hasn't been knocked out I know he's only been knocked out one time, and that was to Demetrius Johnson. But I think Payton Talbot can do it. So my official prediction, I'm going with Payton Talbot, and I'm picking him via knockout. With that being said, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. If you like the video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think's going to win. But until then, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see y'all next time.